G'day, Year 11s. Just wanted to have a look at the best way we can tie the assignments together. In reading the drafts, they were really a little bit like I was reading the answers to 5 separate questions. So how can we tie the business assignment a little bit more together? So let's start with the business problem. So the business problem is the clear statement about what the problem is. It might be about reducing market share. It might be about flat profit growth. It's the core of the assignment. And because what we're going to do is we're going to look at operations, we're going to look at marketing, and we're going to say, okay, how do we solve this business problem within the scope of what the assignment is about? So as an example, I popped an example of Tesla on the side. You can't do Tesla because we have to do an authentic Australian company. Tesla won't be that. But the problem for Tesla might be that they're seeing an increase of electric vehicle competitors from mass marketed brands, including Hyundai and Toyota. They're not here just yet, but they're going to be here soon, it would appear. So that's the business problem. And we're going to start thinking and saying, okay, well, what operations and marketing are Tesla doing, and what should they be doing? So that's the business problem. That should be in the introduction or right towards the start of your paper. The next part then is we're going to have the explaining. So we've had the business problem either in the introduction or the describing, and now we look at explaining. And we're going to explain a key marketing strategy and a key operations strategy that the companies are undertaking. And thinking about why it's strategic. Why is it working towards the long-term goals of the company? This could be any range of things. We've talked a lot about in marketing. We've talked a lot, for example, about customer relationship marketing. We've talked about the idea of rewards programs. Operations, it could be suppliers. It could be any of the processes in the business. We've looked at the way processes have changed, for example, in airlines. In the example on the QCAA website, they look at working with the supplier as part of their operation strategy. Let's go and look at our example of Tesla. Tesla have an interesting no advertising policy. So they focus on publicity, which is they want to get people talking in the media about what Tesla are doing. Being such an innovative company, it's possible. So we'd link that to the strategy of the business, which is that they want to be a low-cost provider eventually. So EVs are still expensive. They want to be a low-cost provider, and you can find that referenced a lot of times. And the theory that publicity is a really powerful way of letting people know about your business. In operations, they talk about their mega factories, and that's linked to operation strategy of economies of scale. So you can talk a little bit about economies of scales, and again, you're linking it back to this strategy that Tesla effectively want to be a low-cost provider of cars. And you can find a lot about that in the media at the moment. If you were to look, if you wanted to prove that, the owner of Tesla, or not the owner, he has a significant shareholding, but the boss, Elon Musk, talks a lot about the fact that his priority is making Teslas cheaper so more people can buy them. So that would be in your explaining section. So in your introduction or your describing, you've talked about, the key business problem, and now you're starting to talk about these operations marketing strategies. I would expect these would be the existing strategies that when you get down to evaluating that you would be using. So we're starting to see some things tie together. What's the business problem? What's the key marketing strategy? What's the key operation strategy? Now we come to the analyzing, which is in this case a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and a USP, unique selling proposition. And we want it to be market and operations focused. So we want there to be a lot of points in this SWOT and USP around the marketing. It might be things like price, might be things like customer satisfaction. How well is the brand known? We talked a lot about brands. How well is the brand known? That could be a great place to get some primary research into your assignment. Do a little survey, or maybe go and have a look at some online reviews. What are the customer attitudes? In the operations, how well is technology used? Technology is going to be a big part of operations, and I think that's a great question to ask around companies. Is one of their strengths that they're using technology well, or is that an opportunity that they could be looking at? Are there any problems around the way they use technology? For example, I'm not sure anyone is doing Optus, but if you are, you might mention the outage that happened a couple of weeks ago, where Optus was off the air for a number of hours. So you're looking for opportunities to talk about marketing and operations in that case, in that place. As an example, in SWOT, the marketing bottom, how well known is Tesla? Does the publicity focus work that Tesla works on? See if you can find some research on how much publicity Tesla are getting, how often are they mentioned in media, and what are customer attitudes to Tesla. You might look at doing some primary research or getting some primary research from existing reviews. Operations, how well is technology used? Are the mega factories efficient? There'll be a lot of writing on that. How well does Tesla have access to financial resources for innovation? It seems to be a big listed company. What's the value of the company? Is it in a strong cash position? USP could focus on things like price, place, product, promotion, whatever was thought to be significant. It'd be great to compare the promotion strategy of Tesla being focused more on publicity with other car companies that might use advertising, mass advertising more. Operational issues like delivery time, number of locations. Tesla obviously have a very interesting situation where they don't so much have dealerships, they tend to actually sell online. So another interesting thing that you could look at. So that would be in the analysing section. And you can start to, hopefully you can start to see you've got a business problem, you've got a key marketing strategy, a key operation strategy, now you've got analysis that has looked around marketing and operations. That's naturally going to lead to some relationships, patterns and trends that are going to be relevant for that as well. Now we move to the evaluating. So the evaluating is saying, okay, you've got to compare the strategically important marketing strategy that came from explaining with something else, a different strategy, and compare the operations strategy with the new operations strategy and make decisions on both. So the marketing, let's say, for example, and you're comparing on the criteria of stakeholder satisfaction and competitiveness, make sure you know what those criteria are. Go back to the early part of the textbook. So you might compare the current strategy of publicity compared to adding some paid advertising. What might that mean for stakeholder satisfaction? It might be interesting. You might say, well, actually, maybe Tesla is well enough known that really adding extra publicity may not make a great deal of difference to stakeholder satisfaction. Perhaps in competitiveness, perhaps it will help the Tesla brand to be well known. But I suspect when you look at the research, Tesla's already pretty well known. So it might be an interesting discussion. And equally, operations, you might say, well, let's compare the mega factories now with adding some local manufacturing capacity. Often governments will subsidise local manufacturing. Maybe they should be thinking about doing that and compare those two. And at the end of each come to a decision. But remember, the decision isn't the recommendations. That's the very last thing we're going to look at here is say, okay, now we want to link this recommendation. We've looked at these two strategies. How can we link this recommendation back to the business problem? Okay, and how they should go about the change, right? It's got to be something. This is actual recommendation. It's got to have some substance in what we're doing. So you might say that because demand outstrips supplies for Tesla's car at the moment, focus should continue to be on lowering production costs. That should be the most important thing. From your analysis, that's come out as the most important thing. If there are opportunities to work with government to set up regional manufacturing facilities, a joint venture basis that will reduce production costs, so putting in a proviso there, then pursue them. But the focus is on lower cost production. So there are some ideas of just the way we can start to link our assignment together, starting with the business problem, going to key operating and marketing strategies that we'll also come back and look at and evaluating, thinking about what we've got in our SWOT that's focused on marketing and operations, and then a recommendation. So it's not just the decision. The decisions, usually we do a pretty good job of making decisions around evaluating two-side things, but actually coming back to a recommendation.